multitude dried up with thirst. Therefore hell hath enlarged herself and opened her mouth without measure. And their glory and their multitude and their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend into...
Hey there, good day. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing our study in the book of the prophet Zephaniah. And Katie, I would ask you to make sure in the other room they keep their voices to a minimum. I can still hear them. All right. So let's begin by reading. We'll start at the very beginning. We won't read the whole book this time, though, like we did yesterday. We'll just read this chapter we're on. The word of the Lord which came unto Zephaniah, the son of Cushi, the son of Gedaliah, the son of Amariah, the son of Hezekiah, in the days of Josiah, the son of Ammon, king of Judah. I will utterly consume all things from off the land, saith the Lord. I will consume man and beast. I will consume the fowls of the heaven, and the fishes of the sea, and the stumbling blocks with the wicked. And I will cut off man from off the land, saith the Lord. I will also stretch out mine hand upon Judah, and upon all the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And I will cut off the remnant of Baal from this place, and the name of the Chemarims with the priests. And them that worship the host of heaven upon the housetops, and them that worship and that swear by the Lord, and that swear by Malcolm, and them that are turned back from the Lord, and those that have not sought the Lord, nor inquired for him. Hold thy peace at the presence of the Lord, for the day of the Lord is at hand, for the Lord hath prepared a sacrifice, he hath bid his guests. And it shall come to pass in the day of the Lord's sacrifice that I will punish the princes, and the king's children, and all such as are clothed with strange apparel. In the same day also will I punish all those that leap on the threshold, which fill their masters' houses with violence and deceit. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that there shall be the noise of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second, and a great crashing from the hills. Howl, ye inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off. And it shall come to pass at that time that I will search Jerusalem with candles, and punish the men that are settled on their lees, that say in their heart, the Lord will not do good, neither will he do evil. Therefore their goods shall become a booty, and their houses a desolation. They shall also build houses, but not inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards, but not drink the wine thereof. The great day of the Lord is near, it is near, and hasteth greatly. Even the voice of the day of the Lord, the mighty man shall cry there bitterly. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of the trumpet and alarm against the fenced cities and against the high towers. And I will bring distress upon men, that they shall walk like blind men, because they have sinned against the Lord, and their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as dung. Neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath, but the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. So, we left off at verse 10. Felt like there was something, well, we must seek the Lord. We must inquire after him. I know we talked about that, but it's an important key, because we need the wisdom to be able to endure those things which come upon us. Like I said, in this time, even God's people, even his faithful ones, such as David and his companions, they were carried away captive with the wicked. All the people, the entire land was emptied of people. I mean, not absolutely, but I didn't mention last time, this Hezekiah in Hebrew is no different than Hezekiah. That's the same name. He is the grandson, or the great-grandson of King Hezekiah. So he's Zephaniah. Again, Amos was a herdman. You know, he was a prophet he was a herdman. Not a big fancy Dan, you know, not from a royal house. But some of the prophets were from royal houses because they were the educated classes, and so he could write his own prophecy. Amos may have been literate, or he may have had employed someone to write on his behalf, because such things could be done. Or perhaps his prophesying was so notable that someone comes along and says, let me write down what you got to say, because of what you had to say. So anyways, but Zephaniah is one of the royal house, just like Daniel was of the seed royal, or the nobility, if you will. And all those of the, you know, all the privileged classes, you know, because they were centered around Jerusalem and in big important houses, they were the ones who were deported. If there's any remnant left over, it's from the poorest of the people. In fact, that's I believe what it says in many occasions. There'll be, you know, the humble, the lowly, they inherit the earth. The meek shall inherit the earth, as the Lord Jesus said. It is not many wise men, not many great, not many mighty are even called. You know, that's why I always I try to take the gifts I have with a great dose of humility, knowing that, you know, it's a great privilege to serve God. And though all serve him, whether they like to or not, like I say, even the wicked serve. Their torment will be forever, as I say. You know, if you know what I mean, I don't believe in literal eternal torment, but I do believe that there is something extracted from the wicked, you know, because that's what torture means. That's what it indicates, the extraction of information through pain. And the pain of existence, the things we experience, the sufferings, you know, and the suffering of the wicked. You know, I've suffered for my own sins. Not that I've suffered sufficiently to pay for them. Only Christ has done that. Only his suffering would suffice. Though, you know, like I say, he didn't have to suffer. You know, a lot of times they do this thing where it's like, oh, he actually went to hell and suffered the torment of hell in a moment like it was forever or something like that, to make it like a literal equivalence. It's a matter of acceptable things, what God chooses to accept. And that's the way I look at it. It's not a question of like that there's some sort of cosmic order above God that he has to bend his needs to. No, he is the order of the cosmos. He is the law of nature. Like whatever law there is, it exists because he said it so, not because there's some higher order thing. If there was some higher order thing, then, you know, if God, that's why I don't like the doctrine of free will. And I mean in the sense that they take it to the extreme where free will is actually running the universe. Like God doesn't really know what's going to happen until we decide. I mean, that to me is unacceptable. You must somehow reconcile, just like the idea of Christ's, his distinctiveness from the Father has to be reconciled with the fact that my Lord and my God, he is God. You know, just as Thomas confessed when he stuck his hand into his wound, he said, my Lord and my God. He wasn't just exclaiming that like, my God, do you feel what? My God. You know, he wasn't using it like some sort of exclamation. He was using it as a proclamation. It's confessing his faith. Because no one has power to take up their life like that except God himself. Anyways, but you got to reconcile those two things. And the failure to do so ends up with people having those opposing views out of the same book of the same Bible. You know, but they're always picking on us who believe in the Trinity, calling us a cult and stuff like that, when they're the ones who haven't dealt with the other side of the equation. And there is another side of the equation. He is one with God. I and my Father are one, and he is distinct from God. And the same thing's about predestination and free will. And I ignored half of the issue for a long time myself. Well, for a long time I had Arnold Murray's explanation, which actually I think is nonsensical, because it basically denies predestination is not something God decided. It's something you decided. In the world it was, right? Anyways. But this idea that God foreknows. Katie, there's talking in the other room and it's distracting me. Please stop it. Put an end to it, okay? It's something God is aware of. It's something that is, you know, his perspective is he understands predestination. He understands, hold on a second. I'm gonna have to deal with this on my own, apparently. I can't make the throw past the computer. Katie, you need to do something. You better be watching. Let me check. Do I have a concurrent viewer? Let's see. Do I have a concurrent viewer? Yeah, I have a concurrent viewer. Well, the study is really getting derailed by all the chit-chat in the other room, so please put a stop to it. I asked you before. Apparently you didn't hear me. That's all right. Anyways, I may have to wait for that. Anyway, no, I'm not going to wait. All right. The predestination, not that that's the topic here, but, you got to look at the fact that God knows all things from the beginning. And it says so many, many times. In fact, the word predestination, unlike Trinity, is actually in the Bible. And he whom he did foreknow, he did predestinate. And there's all kinds of very explicit statements about having done neither good nor evil in the womb, that God, for his own purposes, decides things. But then, of course, you got to confront the fact that in life, we don't live life from this predestined sort of, like, we don't know where we're going. We got to make choices. And in fact, and again, but it's a question, there is a reconciliation of those two ideas. Because I don't deny that we have free will. I just deny that God, it matters at all to God. From his perspective, it doesn't matter at all. Not only does he know what we're going to do, but he chose it from before the foundation of the world in choosing to make it me, in choosing to make it you. Because if there had been a different person in my slot, like if a different sperm got to the egg, I'd be making very different decisions. And it wouldn't be me. That's another thing. That wouldn't be I. That's when people talk about being born the wrong body or born this or born that. It's our minds that we need to get straight. And recognize that we are who we are. Anyways. And again, there's the captivity that Zephaniah is prophesying against, or towards, I should say. I meant against in that sense of he's over against that, in the sense of proximity. He's talking about the proximal captivity. But the prophesying takes on this very exaggerated form, because it's like, is it literally like all those things? Well, in a certain sense, I mean, there will be darkness and smoke from battle and all those things, right? As far as in the Babylonian captivity. But like I said, whenever they get into talking about the day of the Lord, it refers to when God judges things, when God gets into action. He brings about events that change the world. I mean, the world of the first temple came to an end. There was a whole little world with the first temple, Solomon's temple, and the ark was still there, and all, and the writing of the law from Moses that Josiah found in the temple, that was all still intact from when he brought them out of Egypt. There was Aaron's rod that budded, all these things, the candlestick, the laver, all that stuff was going to be carried away into Babylon, as he told Hezekiah, as Isaiah told Hezekiah, when he showed the emissaries from Babylon all his house and all his riches and all these things. He's like, and there's coming the day when all the stuff he showed them is going to be carried away to Babylon. And, of course, remember notably Belteshazzar, right, was using the vessels to throw himself a party, which is where the writing on the wall came, and his world came to an end. All right, but there is an ultimate end. But all the little ends have something in common with the big end, especially when we're talking about through the divine perspective, through the perspective of the prophets, the perspective of the apostles. And it's very evident to me in that you see the New Testament draws very heavily on the Old Testament, at least, like I said, is Paul making it up when he talks about the man of sin, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God? What, he didn't know that Antiochus Epiphanes fulfilled that? What, he didn't get the memo? You know what I mean? No, they knew that that was one thing, but it comes yet again, and it ultimately comes to an ultimate. Just like Moses was he himself prophesied that there would come a prophet after him, like him. That you got to listen to him. That God would raise up prophets, but also an ultimate prophet. And also false prophets would arise. The false prophets arose in the old days. They're running rampant today. And someone sent me a link. Oh, listen, they were trying to convince me that I should jump on the Zionism bandwagon, which I just jumped off like less than a year ago. And I would never say I was a heavy Zionist or anything, but I was very deferential to them, and I believed their propaganda. that they were fighting with one hand tied behind their back, basically, metaphorically speaking, that with the utmost care for civilians and stuff, they have to do all this stuff. Oh, they're so the most moral army in the world. All lies. I've currently, the Lord opened my eyes to. I mean, because the evidence is all out there. I just wasn't looking for it. I had other things to do, right? But it's like, the Lord showed me, it's like I should not ignore the suffering of people, even people that are far away. If I know about it, I can't just ignore it. I got to at least say something, and I'll do more than that. I'll do more than that. How are the inhabitants of Maktesh? Oh, wait, so the howling, I said that because there's the fish gate, the second gate, the hills, and so on. The places in the city where they go in and out, the cry of alarm. And that's also I apply to the end times. Like I've said, the end times aren't going to come on us like all secretly. It's not going to be like, oh, wow, I didn't know it was the end times. That's why I was always annoyed as people are, we are living in the end times. You are a false prophet. We are not living in the end times. Not yet. We may be. I do think we will enter into them in my, before I am an old man and dead. I mean, I could die before they come. I don't really want to because I want to be there for my family. I want to help guide them through it. And it's something from a young age, I wanted to live in the end times. I was not very smart. I was not very smart. Now I do not want to live in the end times, but I've sort of reconciled myself that I eventually will. And the world is going to end. And it's going to be really bad. And it will affect good people, good people. It'll affect Christians. It'll affect everybody because we all live on the planet. Doesn't mean wrath of God is against you necessarily, not you personally. But like I said, if I want God to do great things for me, I'm very mindful of the words of the Lord Jesus. He's like wants to come and find us doing his work and being serious and sober about it. Not just kicking back and taking part in the world and enjoying it. Hey, let us eat and drink. We'll die tomorrow, We'll worry about death tomorrow. For now, we're just going to have fun. We'll play our games. We'll do our things, And it does, it is a little bit of there's obviously we still have to continue to earn a living, right now. But when the end times come, they'll be screaming in the gates. Just like when we had the pandemic, things just really changed. And in fact, a world kind of did pass away. Like the world I grew up in and the world, it was though that had already waxed old and gone away in many ways, it really went away after 2020 in a big, big way. And, and things that were cooking under the surface came up to the surface. Censorship from our government contacting these using these little agencies that they fund through the universities, and those things contacting Facebook and YouTube and making sure the wrong things don't get said. I can hardly talk or leave a comment, and I basically kind of given up, and I'm like, the comments. Nobody, I can't say certain things. It gets deleted immediately, especially about the wars, the illegal wars we're fighting. I call them, they're all, not that there's a lawful, in righteousness he doth judge and make war. But men, I don't really ascribe much lawfulness to their wars, especially because, there's no good reason. It's not like, some barbarian hordes have invaded. We've got to defend our hearths and homes. We don't have that. But when the end times come upon us, there will be noise from people crying, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. Normal civil society will break down. The things that people normally depend on are going to be shattered, and they'll be left, like it says, right? They'll be left howling. All the merchants will be cut down. And again, there's a certain thing though in the end times, right? We have Antichrist, and he's going to make peace, and he's going to destroy many by that peace. Because I think that in the midst of a lot of the disasters, it's not going to be like all at once. But it'll come on, and people will know something's up. And the Antichrist is going to step in and seem to make it better, right? They're going to think like, this is the one who can save us. This is the one who's going to deliver us from this tumult. We kind of need a sort of tumultuous opening salvo, so to speak. Well, there are 4 trumpets that come before the 5th, which is I believe is where Antichrist appears. Of course, in that it's highly symbolic, but he is the angel of the bottomless pit. I have no doubt. I mean, I do have some doubt actually, but because I've always left the door open on that interpretation, as I don't have, I have a strong feeling, but it's like, okay, well, what's that? I don't put that in the same level as a strong revelation. It's something that I feel. I do believe in that supernatural Antichrist. I think it's interesting. We've had a lot of UFO disclosure stuff going on the past several years too. They're letting these guys come up to Congress and say, yeah, there are these unidentified, they don't call them flying objects, or unidentified aerial phenomenon, I think is what they call it. UAP, yeah. UAPs, because UFO is so, we got to change 2 of those letters at least to make it not so, because they for so long they poo-pooed that. I don't know what else to call it. They ran that narrative down, made it a conspiracy theory, and I have no doubt a lot of it is nonsense. I'm not even sure I believe a lot of the things those people tell Congress, because if they're telling it to the public, it's probably a lie that they've been told to repeat, or that they've been given to believe. A lot, you can make show someone a bunch of stuff and let them believe these things, and then that this is actually alien or whatever, and then they go out in the public and they start talking about it, and there's a lot of dispute about what's going on. But I found a lot of the things interesting that I've seen, such as the lights that moving under the water and stuff like that. But again, with the technology today, it's so hard to tell what's real and what's not. But I do think that's because it's like, okay, but wait a second, aren't they all bound up in the bottomless pit still, right? I don't know. There's also a sense in which, Satan is loose in the world, but he's also bound. And that's what I would say. He's not completely free to do whatever he wants. When he tells Jesus, I can give them to whoever I will, that's probably a bit of BS. I mean, he lies all the time. He always exaggerates his authority, even to the Lord. I'm sure he does. So it's I don't think it's entirely his way to give the whole truth. And anything that comes out of his mouth, you got to figure is at best a half truth. Yeah, he has a lot of his people in power, no doubt. But the idea that he can just do whatever he wants, well, God has an overall plan which Satan, without witting, participates in. I don't think he has to either be aware of or in agreement with it. He's going to do what he wants to do. And just like us, his will is entirely open and naked before God. And God knows what he's going to do before he does it. And in fact, that's why he was made to do the things he does. Because we need a Satan in this world, apparently. Just like we needed a tree of knowledge of good and evil and a serpent to wrap around it. There's an evil. God has purposes, and evil plays a part in that purpose. Because if we're going to have a kingdom and a world in which righteousness dwells, in which we can enjoy with the Creator a blissful future of building houses and inhabiting them, of planting vineyards and eating the fruit of them, which I take as analogies for just productive working on things. I like to work on things even if it's not for money or for, I have so many projects and stuff that I have, especially music. Obviously, I'm really into the music. I'd like to work on music all the time. And I could write a lot more. I would like to spend 1,000 years putting the whole Bible to music. Probably wouldn't take that long. You know what I mean? But then so much more could be done. And I don't know, I enjoy those things, and I enjoy productive labor. I like gardening. It's another thing, to plant the garden. Isn't that the first thing God made man to do, was to keep the garden that he had planted? And so there's something I find rewarding in doing those things, even though they have to be done over and over again, even though there's no end to the songs, even though there's no end to the planting or the building. I live in a property, and I love to build the property up. I like to convert the buildings and stuff like that. And that's what ultimately the future is. And if you want to have that and not have people break in and steal and destroy, there's something about this world that God has put, that he is raising up these sons. He's going to adopt us as his sons. Well, I'm just going to mute that a second. All right, it feels like I got a feather in my nose. Hold on a second here. No, a feather. It's probably a scab. All right. And that's the beauty of it. But here it's like, that we're going to dwell in a kingdom of righteousness, a holy kingdom. And we will be his people. He will be our God, just as it was always promised. We can have a world of goodness. And the neat part is he invited us who are not entirely good to enjoy this world. And that's part, I call it his ambitious project, because it's like, I'm going to take fallible humans and make them my sons. I'm going to I'm going to redeem them from the corruption that has entered the world. But also I'm going to give them, because in the knowledge of good and evil, that makes Satan half told the truth, in that it does make you more like God to know good and evil. It doesn't make you quite as gods as you might hope, because we become like evil gods, especially when we have power. When men have enough power, they, and the tendency of power to corrupt us, I mean, just see it in just like, even in the small ways. You get more money. Does it make you more charitable? Or does it make you live a more, self-gratifying lifestyle? I know that when I think about getting a lot of money, that, I don't think so much about gratification as I do about preservation, but I know there's thoughts in my head that lean that way. Like, how about an underground swimming pool? I'd love that. Oh yeah. Maybe a heated one with a thing over it. Oh yeah, if I had the money. I mean, I get it. I don't know if that's the wisest course. I'm so convinced of the end that I don't think I would take that course at all. I'd be more interested in creating shelters. But but instead of fearing that and thinking about that, I should probably take it and feed the hungry. So the Lord will be pleased with me when he comes. And so that he'll turn away his fierce wrath from me personally. He may throw it down on the people around me, but not me. Again, we all have death coming. It doesn't mean you're not going to be saved, yet so as by fire. It's like, I don't want to be saved yet so as by fire. I want to be saved to the utmost, in fulfilling his will for me. And that's how we should think about it. It's not about doing works to get saved. It's about being his workmanship and fulfilling your destiny as his workmanship, because it is your destiny to become his son. If you have the faith of Jesus Christ, then you are called to be a son of God. You're going to enter in a kingdom where righteousness dwells. It's like, though I'm fallible and I'm human, there's a degree to which I could do a better job of modeling the behavior of that kingdom. And, and I should never be satisfied until I completely do it. It's not that I should get all upset or doubtful in my mind, but I want to have the right amount of zeal that pleases the Lord to do his will. Okay. Yeah, all the merchant people are cut down. Remember when there was no toilet paper and everyone was upset? Well, we're going to be out of toilet paper again, folks. Those that bear silver are cut off. And we're also headed for a monetary crisis just naturally. I mean, we're going there. Our empire is spending itself towards we're headed towards a cliff, and they are just spending like crazy. It makes me wonder if they don't just know, and they're just trying to cash in as much as possible, get as many, because they're all getting rich in Washington. They're all getting rich. They're investing in the arms, and they're rich, getting rich off of that, right? Among other things, they're just, Nancy Pelosi, she's a real lucky investor, man. She just keeps winning. Well, I don't know how much of that is actually insider trading, but in fact, a lot of them don't do that well. But they're all in the markets, and the markets are all pumped up. Hey, we're all rich here in America until our money is worthless, until the silver and we don't even use silver as money, because ultimately silver and gold, like it says, their silver and their gold will not be able to save them. You can invest in gold, and maybe that's a nice strategy, but it's ultimately worthless. It's just metal. And same thing with lead. I mean, those that live by the sword are going to die by the sword. I've often joked about lead, and I mostly thought of that in terms of a conventional collapse. And for that sake, like I said, I do not go about unarmed. I live in the country. I like to open carry. At least around my property. Who says I can't? I can go out and shoot things. But anyways, but you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You go around shooting people, you're going to get shot. You go around killing people, you're going to get killed. Go around taking hostages, you're going to get hostage taken. And I mean, remember that Israel already holds a lot more hostages of those Palestinians than the other way around. Their whole point in taking the hostages was to trade for their people. But no, you just return, you just unite. The negotiations that the people on our side in that conflict, also in the Soviet, in the conflict with Russia, we have this no negotiation type, mentality. This unconditional surrender. You go back to where you came from and give us everything back that you've taken. It's like, it's such a simplistic and simple-minded way to look at things. And it's like people, the only analogy they understand is World War II. It's just like World War II. It's just like, look at, he's Hitler, he's this, he's that. Reminds me of World War II. You don't get your head out of the sand, we're all going to be dead. But I don't know. I think we're all dead anyways, right? He's going to fill the places with the dead bodies. Hopefully not ours, right? Hopefully not ours. Like I said, we can die in just natural things that come about. A bunch of people die all the time. There are Christian women praying in a church and they got shot by snipers. Hey, you think you'd be safe in a church, right? And it's like, oh, that's the judgment of God. Well, is it? It's like, look, the 2 witnesses are going to be killed. Is that God's against them? No, he testifies he's for them within 3 days and a half they rise from the dead. They will not suffer their bodies to be buried, would rather leave them in place. Rejoice over them. Have a good old time, because the last resistance has been crushed, right? They can finally have their new world order. Everything's going to be beautiful. Everything's going to be lovely. We have our God with us, right? He will make a show that he is God. That's the ultimate form of evil. The man who not only acts like he thinks he's God, but he wants you to think he's God. You can already see it in the way they want to control our thoughts. I heard recently Australia's got a ministry or a minister for basically reforming men and changing their minds and behavior. It's just crazy. The way they want to regulate our thinking. I recently tried to publish my song, The Language Police, which was a hilarious and stinging, and that's the problem. It's a stinging diatribe against this madness where they try to make us say that black is white and white is black, or men are women and women are men, if you prefer. And they want you to, you not only got to, you don't just have to, it's not enough that you just play along, of course. They don't really want that. They really want you must believe that they are what they say they are. What's in your mind is very much on their agenda. What you think, they want to control it. They want to predict it so they can figure out, that's the pre-crime. It's already in the works. They think they can know. Oh, who's going to, they want to get out ahead of things before bad things happen. They're going to guess that maybe AI will be able to predict who's going to do some awful thing, right? And then they go to the camp. It shall come to pass that I will search Jerusalem with candles and punish the men that are settled on their lees. This makes me think of those things that Isaiah spoke about. Remember, Zephaniah is a good century after Isaiah. A good century, yes. Or about a century, let's say, give or take a decade or so. Because I think Bullinger put him as 518. And then I think 611 was the Assyrian, and Isaiah prophesied around there. All right, so punish the men that are settled on their lees. They talk about wine well settled on the lees. What is that in Hebrew? I'm curious. The men that are settled on their lees. Fishgate. Like I said, there'll be a public outcry. That's how I interpret those things. It's a lot more interesting than what we may see. People who want to focus just on only the historical. It's like, okay, good for you. You got that down pat, great. But if you don't really understand what you read. I was saying the other day, I get, what annoys me is the people who say oh, we're, whatever. I'm not gonna go into that. I don't want to be taken as anti any particular group of people. Thanks for another scenes that showed everything. It's not porn, but it's like trying to tempt me. The dregs. I believe the lees, though, is like the settlings. Hold on a second here. It's interesting that they call it this because, Paul, browse internet, not that one. And then, okay, now we're set up. Good. I'm just going to pop that window back up for me. No, shemer, lees or dregs. Now we use this word dregs, like the dregs of society. And I believe it is the things, when you age it, I remember this when I drank all my dad's wine when I was a teenager. They had these wine bottles in this wine rack, and I drank it up. Replaced it with water and food coloring. Clever boy. How long? I don't know what I thought. I think I thought I would buy a jug of wine at some point and like pour it in, or I don't know, whatever. But I remember the old bottles of wine. There'd be like this flaky stuff that would and it would kind of settle in at the bottom. If you shake it up, it'd have all these like things floating around in it. Now masculine. It doesn't occur a lot of times. Only 5 times in the whole Bible. And I bet they have He has also been let me see. Let's look at that, actually. The dregs thereof. In Psalm 75, let's look at these occurrences, because, thanks, thanks, like this is the way I want to look at it. No. For there's a cup in the hand of Yahweh, and the wine is red. It is fully mixed. And he pours from this one's, surely its dregs shall drain, and drink down all the wicked of the earth. They will drink it. They will drink the dregs. Meaning to the last drop. Now, if you think about the mystery Babylon, right? She's got this cup full of abominations and filthiness, and it's, and then all that, there's some things that float to the top, and there's other things that sink to the bottom. And the things that sink to the bottom, those are the dregs. And I gotta confess, when I drank that wine with the dregs all kind of thing, the bottom part was kind of gross. I didn't really like it. I think you don't really want to drink the dregs. Isn't that supposed to be the dregs of society? It's the bottommost, the kind of the most unpleasant, the most despised, perhaps for good reason is what that implies. Okay, get rid of that ad again. Okay, so wait, what is this? To thicken, condense, congeal? I don't know where I got that. Okay, I wanted to just go back to see those other scriptures. Yes, the dregs, the God has this cup. There's a cup of blessing. The cup of the Lord, right? Jesus Christ, he blessed the cup and passed it around his disciples. Drink this up. This is my blood. Still represents something kind of, I want to say portentous, but that's not the right word, but more momentous or something really important. Lifeblood. That's important. It's like, oh, wow, this cup is full of blood. Like wine is blood colored, right? And it can be a picture of God's wrath, like in Jeremiah. Here, Isaiah 25. I'm going to bring that up. Well, I'm going to read it anyways. From my Bible collection. I'm not going to bring it up on screen. I'm just going to read the verse there. It's pertinent. I think these are interesting. Because it gives you, by reading these verses in context, it gives you a sense, without having to look up lees or dregs, it gives you a sense of what it's all about. Isaiah 25 verse 6 says, and in this mountain shall the Lord of hosts make unto all people a feast of fat things, a feast of wines on the lees, of fat things full of marrow, of wines on the lees, well refined. And then he will say, so it's a combined thing. Like, thou shalt bring down the noise of the strangers, the verse 5 reads, as heat in a dry place, even the heat with the shadow of a cloud. The branch of the terrible ones shall be brought low. And then verse 7, which is after that verse, and he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. Because we who have come to Christ, that veil is taken away for us. We, through the Spirit, we approach the throne of God boldly, to that throne of grace. And we have access to the mercy seat, the seat of God's mercy and forgiveness. Through the sacrifice of Christ, we are purified. We are made holy in his eyes. Even if we haven't accomplished that in our everyday life, he accomplished it with his work on the cross, which is the beauty of what we have in Christ. He will swallow, in verse 8 it says, he will swallow up death in victory, and the Lord God will wipe away tears from off all faces. And the rebuke of his people shall he take away from all the earth. For the Lord hath spoken. And ultimately, who are the people of God? Those people who witness for him. Those that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. It is not about being a respecter of persons. It's like, well, I've got the Christian brand or I've got the Jewish brand. I'm sorry, that's not how it works. That is not how God works. The whole Bible consistently portrays this thing. Oh, we got Judah, we got Esau and Jacob, right? Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated. Esau's a profane person. He's cast out, not an inheritor. You know, Abraham, not Lot, not his children, but they're all the same seed. Well, it's the seed of Abraham directly. Well, then why not Ishmael? Well, God didn't choose Ishmael. He chose Isaac. And they keep thinking it's about, it's Isaac. And then it's like, but we are the seed of the come down from that and the tribe. You know, it's like, well, then, what about Israel when he cast them off? They forget about that. And Jesus, he rejected some. He said, I know you're Abraham's seed, but you're not his children because you don't do his works. That's how it always works. He isn't going back, and there never was a system where you got to do whatever you wanted because you were somebody's child. That just doesn't exist. There's no there is the sure mercies of David, but you want to call the sure mercies of David because they're kind of notable as being unusual. He didn't do whatever he wanted either. He did some bad things, but he paid for them. He was chastised like a son. If we are without chastisement, we might as well consider ourselves bastards. If God just lets us do whatever we want, do all kinds of abominable things in his sight, murder innocent people. Oh, we're God's people. Bang. That's not God's people. God's people don't do that. That what's the word I want to use? That negates it. It makes it void. Your deeds have separated between you and your God. That's the way God works. Anyone who says otherwise is out to lunch. You don't know the Bible. You don't know the big picture. You get caught up in this little letter here. Oh, look it says forever the land to them. To God's people. I mean, the whole earth belongs to me and you, right? You who serve God, you who know him, if you know him, right? It's ours. It's his. It's ours because we are his. And my land will be holy. And my people holy. But they don't get there by, you can't be holy and be abominable. And this doesn't work like that. That's just not how things work, folks. Or what was another scripture? But what I was going to say about that, well, wine on the lees. We're mostly concerned with the lees. And Isaiah 25. Okay, we did that. Jeremiah 48. I want to look at this one because I think this will give us some insight as to what does it mean, the men who are settled on their lees. Because Paul, I get what you're saying about the dregs of the cup of the wine and all that. But what about the men that are well settled on their lees? How does that apply to them? Obviously, we can guess at it, right? There's some sort of, what's the idea of wine that's settled on its lees? It makes me think one thing about old wineskins that Jesus talked about. When people over a long period of time, they just sort of sit in one place, right? They get settled into a way of living. They get settled into a way of life. And while you're doing that, you're so still that then the things start precipitating, right? These things start precipitating in the solution. I'm still remembering my chemistry a little bit, but that's a good idea. They precipitate, and then you get this stuff falling to the bottom, the kind of yuck, and it starts collecting. You know what I mean? You're collecting all the yuck as that wine is aging. And that can be good because the yuck kind of precipitates out, and then the wine that you skim off the top, the good stuff, that's the best. What it's sort of saying. It's aged. It's aged and it's good, but also there's a negative side to it, right? Just like the cup of the wrath. There's a cup. He's going to destroy the face of the covering off the earth. Everyone's going to have their eyes open. But, and we will be saved. And not everyone's going to be destroyed, but it will be in the process of taking out his wrath on the earth. That's what that cup that woman, that's what it represents. She's got this golden cup in her hand that she's filled up with things. She's put a lot into that cup. A lot has been precipitating out, man. A lot of filthiness. What was the verse I wanted? Verse 11. Moab hath been at ease from his youth. He hath settled on his lees, and hath not been emptied from vessel to vessel, neither hath he gone into captivity. Therefore his taste remaineth in him, and his scent is not changed. That is a real good idea of what they meant by this. Jeremiah and Zephaniah are contemporaries. So this is, this is how the men of that age would have talked about such things. When someone is a man well settled on their lees, it's complacency. It is a lot like an old wineskin. They become very much, there's no room for expansion. They're old and they're settled in their ways. In fact, settled on his lees is a lot like settled in his ways. But also it implies that that's not good. It is good to be like, here's the thing. It is the antithesis of what it means to be a Christian. Because I must constantly stir things up. Right? I got to pour myself from vessel to vessel to be a new vessel in Christ constantly. I do think. Because I got more to learn. I've been doing this for 30 years plus, and I know I got more to learn. Is that right? Yes, 30 years plus. Started when I was 19, right? I remember now. Yeah, I started this Bible study when I was 19. I was going to tell, because I met someone who knew the guy who's married to the woman who suggested I start the Bible study. I wanted to tell him I'm still doing it. It's still going on. It's still the same Bible study. Still the same Bible student, actually. He's still watching with me. Right? If I have one, Lord, I'll continue. And he gave me one, so I would keep going, I guess. And I know more listen to than one, but it'd be depressing to do a live stream without at least one audience member, right? It's just zero every day. Right? Okay. But that is the idea. He hath been at ease from his youth. It's that picture of ease and settling out in your ease and getting used to your ways and becoming fixed in your ways. And kind of disgusting too. Because that's what comes out in that is the dregs, bad habits. You know what I mean? Bad habits, bad ideas, and they just percolate out, not precipitate. And it's that way with the false doctrine. That's why I try to keep an open mind. When someone wants to debate me on the Trinity, yeah, I'll listen a bit. But I already been through a lot of debate on that. I've been sorting. Not everything needs to be refreshed refreshed, yes. Not everything needs to be rehashed. But it's good to rehash to keep our minds strong in it. So we go through it again. I go through the debate again in my mind. There's nothing wrong with that. I debate it again. I cast doubt on what I think so that I can stir it up again. I don't want to become well settled on my lease. Though that is a portrait, though, of a rich wine. I ain't a rich wine. God's the one who gives the rich wine and the new wine. There's the new wine and the old, right? And both can be a picture of blessing. Destroy it not, for there's a blessing in it. I think that's the new wine. As the new wine is found in the cluster, and one saith, destroy it not, for there's a blessing in it. There's a blessing in new wine. It's not a curse. Wine and strong drink are not, you've got to be careful about it. Don't rise up early to follow strong drink. Drinking in the daytime, bad news. Drinking too much, period, bad news. Anyways, so he hath settled on his lees. So again, I like the way you look at the New American Standard, okay? Who are stagnant in spirit. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't bring you over there again. Look at the New American Standard. All right, well, now I know that that's an interpretation. Period. Settled on your lees. They totally take out and they put stagnant in spirit. Okay, I get it. But see, you don't need to have an interpreter to be able to figure these things out. You just got to be able to look at other context of it. Sometimes there isn't context, and then I do look to those interpreters. Like I said, but using one of those texts as your base text for study, it lacks consistency when you get over to the other passages. Anyways, so let's go back to our text. Okay. They are settled on their lees, and how the world is like that now. People just, that we like our, we gotten used to our cell phones and our computer, and we live life a certain way. I was like swiping on my hand, I mean, I like my phone too. Since I switched to a smartphone, I just like it because it's replaced. I don't have to download audiobooks anymore. That's basically. I just like to use it. It's my portable music player basically, and a phone. It's a terrible phone though. The flip phones were so much better as phones. Like that thing annoys me as a phone. Having a touch screen against your face is annoying because it constantly goes off when I don't want it to, and when I want it to, I'm like, okay. But yeah, people become complacent. They become stagnant. That's not a bad interpretation. I'm just saying that you would never know what it was really about. You would never know that it was like, oh, wow, it's about wine settling. You'd lose that word picture in your mind. You know what I mean? It was meaningful to the guy when he wrote it down. That's how people in Jeremiah and Zephaniah's day would describe things of people being stagnant. But stagnant ain't the word. It's settled. They become settled. It's like we become, I'm just upset. I'm fine. I'm fine the way I am, just as I am, and I'll never change. Right? That's sort of the attitude. Come to Jesus just as you are. Yeah, I know I can't do anything to make myself pleasing to God in order to be saved. There's no possibility of salvation from my works, of course. But the idea that after you become saved, you should be settled. In some ways, we are settled. We want to be settled in our minds. We have peace of mind. We want to be settled in the Lord in a certain way, but not in our sinful ways. We should never be settled in sin and allow sin to be continually fester. Not without a heck of a fight. And that's the fight to be fought. I mean, until you have the beams out of your eyes, you're really not much use. And so we got to be active and in pursuing that. And then even when we have gotten the big beams out of our eyes, we got to be constantly on the lookout for specks that might get in there because they can add up. Like one speck in your eye, pretty soon you got 10. And pretty soon it's looking more like a beam because the combined nature of all those things, a lot of little things makes a big thing. The death of 1,000 cuts. Okay, so he's saying, I'm going to search Jerusalem with candles, meaning I'm going to find out all the dark places. I'm going to, remember what Jesus said? He said, there is nothing secret that shall not be revealed. This is a similar kind of idea. I'm going to search out, I'm going to have to get a candle. I'm going to shine a light in all the dark corners. All the dark corners of men's lives, where they sit in their private room, looking at their private porn, doing their evil deeds. What does God care about what I do in private? Because there really isn't anything private. In the world to come, you're going to have to be self-controlled just like he likes it now. We can't just be pleasure-seeking for its own sake. That results in evil. And we're not going to have a lot of evil in the future world. Not in the sense of not moral evil for sure. And certainly not calamities on us and on our works. Our works will abide. If we want to have that abiding work, if we want to abide in that place, we've got to submit to his will. We will be unfit. You can't just defy him and defy his will and think that because you think things about Jesus are true, that you're saved. That isn't how, that is an evil conscience or one that has not been acquainted with the truth. What we do matters. What we do after we receive the gospel, it matters. How you take that talent you've received, you just go bury it in the earth somewhere, he's not going to be happy with you. He already said so. The works of the flesh are these, Paul says. And I've told you before, and I'll tell you again. They which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Okay? If we are the doers of those things, not that if you ever did it. Yeah, we did a lot of those things. Such were some of you. If we continue in those things, how are we that are free from sin continue any longer therein? Seems like it should be impossible. Like John says in 1 John, Chapter 3, he that is born of God doth not commit sin because his seed remains in him, and he cannot sin. He can't sin. Well, always seemed to me like a possibility. I want to buy into that wholeheartedly, and I do. But I also know that, I lack somewhat in will and in power and in faith sometimes. That's not a good thing. But I'm thankful for the example of the apostles because they made a lot of mistakes too. And they had the Lord right there with them. I have him with me too, though. So what's my excuse? Well, he's not visible. That's if I could see him all the time, it would just be worse because I'd sin right in front of him. That's what's so bad. It's just like, am I better than the children of Israel with the pillar of the cloud by day and the fire by night leading them? And they still sin in his sight? With God right there. Literally, a few days ago, God thundered out of the heavens, and he came down in the mountain in smoke, and the next couple of days, we're grumbling. You wouldn't think that. That's what rings so true about the story. Because like that, you wouldn't think that's what people would do. They would be, we all started serving God because we knew he was real. That's the premise of a lot of thinking, I remember... the movie Time Bandits. And there's a little theological thing going on in there. Because in the Church of England, apparently, they're like, you couldn't have absolute proof of God. Because there'd be no need for faith. There would be. You don't understand. There still is. Even with absolute proof of God's existence, you would still have to have faith. Because it's not about having faith that he exists. It's having faith to be faithful and to do what he says. That's faithlessness when you don't do what he says. And it's like you say you believe, but then you go and you do something else. Are you sure you believe? And if we do that consistently, if that is our way of life, we are not his people. We are not his people. I'm not talking about you struggle with a sin here or there. That's not the point. No, people who just give themselves to do whatever. And they become settled in it and stagnant in it. And it precipitates out in their life in all kinds of filthy, disgusting ways. And that ultimately finds itself in that cup that whore holds in her hand. And that whore is the apostate church, a good portion of which is right here in America. They're all settled on their lees. They all think everything's wonderful, and they're applauding genocide. And they're all, we're behind you. Kill them all. Kill them all. Make an end of them. Right? Finish it. Finish it. They're all terrorists. They're all guilty. We're all guilty. And we'll be held accountable. That blood is on my hands, too. I'm paying for it every time I go to the grocery store. And what am I doing to stop it? I don't know how to stop it, but maybe I should do something. What's available to me? Only the word. I can't go bombing places and stuff like that. That's not the way of the Lord. I can't go shooting up the Washington. That's not the way of the Lord. Do what I can. I was going to give to a Christian organization that helps those people. I'm giving the proceeds from a couple songs that I made that have proceeds. I probably have to match something with that, or I don't know, whatever. I shouldn't talk about. Well, I wanted to talk about it to make the song more popular. So whatever. I'm not interested in the rewards. Doing right should be its own reward. And in a sense, it really is. It's the relationship you forge with God. I'm not trying to look good in front of people. The Lord knows that. And that's ultimately, even if you let your light so shine before men, he can tell the difference between letting your light so shine before men and sounding a trumpet before you. He knows the people who are trying to do it to be impressive, trying to virtue signal, as they say. I've been accused of that. And I'm like, whatever, okay. Virtue signal. I don't have any virtue to signal. Not much. I don't want to be falsely, oh, wow, you're so humble. Ooh. Hate that too. Notice here. Okay, and what do they say? The Lord's not going to do nothing. He's not going to do good. He's not going to do. He's just going to let happen whatever's going to happen. That's the evil heart of unbelief. Because what do you mean the Lord won't do good or evil? The Lord ain't going to do nothing. The Lord isn't going to punish us or bless us. It's kind of basically saying there is no Lord. We have a lot of atheism too. Like I said, in the book of Revelation, we see a very clear apostasy. And also, this can also be a sense of that, I sit a queen and am no widow. They don't look on any longer to the true God, but rather to their masters. They swear by Malcolm, by another king. You know what I mean? That's how it ultimately goes. The Lord will not do good or evil. They don't think the Lord is an active principle. He's not going to do anything about it. He's not going to punish us. He's not going to bless. He's not going to reward the righteous and punish the wicked. That's what they think. Therefore, their goods shall become a booty. And when they become apostates, what I'm saying is they also think that that the true God, even if they don't put the right label on it, they'll say, Paul, your God is a fantasy. Your God doesn't exist. The only God is the God sitting there in Jerusalem with his people again, as it should be, restoring them to their positions. God, I don't know. Therefore, their goods shall become a booty. And become someone else is going to take your stuff away. Their houses shall be a desolation. They shall also build houses, but not inhabit them. That has to do with captivity and slavery. Plant vineyards, but not drink the wine thereof. No, that's for somebody else. That's a picture of slavery. But also, it's the antithesis of the blessed life that God promises when we obey him. When we obey him, we build houses, we inhabit them. We plant vineyards, we eat the fruit of them, as it should be, right? A man should be able to eat the fruit of his own labor. That's encoded in our Declaration of Independence as the pursuit of happiness. It means being able to pursue your life as you see fit, to eat the fruit of your labor. What could be more just that a man should do labor and get to eat of it? When he doesn't, it's a great injustice. Someone just works for nothing or works for someone else to profit. But the world is filled with that. There's many, in many ways, that curse has devoured a lot of people. They've cursed us, I should say. But the fat, of course, and I mean this is metaphorically fat, not people who have obesity issues. I mean the people who are fat with all the things of the earth, right? The ones who are really sitting on their leaves, gathering to themselves all this wealth. It's all going to be worthless, and then you're going to lose it all. That's why Jesus said, sell what you have and give it to the poor. Do good with what you have, as opposed to just making yourself fat and fattening up your life and making it more and more pleasurable, more and more settled in its ways. It's time for vacation again, I mean, people need rest from their labors, and I don't begrudge anyone their somewhat. I mean, I do think people take way too I guess because when my mother left my father, her craving for vacations and trips and sailing around the world and stuff like that is part of what led to her discontent in the marriage. Like the idea of raising, being surrounded by my grandchildren was not as important to her as, I want to go on a cruises, and things like that. All right. It is near, so not drink the wine there. Okay, so that's the opposite of God's blessing. The great day of the Lord is near. It is near. And the repetition is near. It is near. I feel like it is near. Like I said, we're not in the end times, but I think my life is going to experience a collapse of some sort, and I sure hope Jesus comes, because otherwise it's going to be really bad. And it's like, if that's the case, then I want my seed to survive until whenever he does come. You know what I mean? But bad, like I've been saying for a while, bad things are ahead for us here in America and the world. But people don't, our collapsing empire will have negative effects on everybody. Most everybody, certainly on a lot of our allies, our friends. But I think Kissinger said, to be an enemy of the United States is bad, but being a friend is fatal. So it is near, hasteth greatly, even the voice of the day of the Lord. The mighty man shall cry there bitterly. Doesn't the mighty will be, their might, not the mighty man glory in his might. Those people are strong physically, but they won't be able to, their physical strength will not be able to contend with all that the Lord will bring. And the people got a lot of money. It's not enough. It's not enough to buy your way out of it. You can't buy your way out of it. The Lord will not be bought. You can hide yourself in the mountains, but then you'll soon be praying for them to fall on you. The day of, what is God's day like? It is a day of wrath, of trouble and darkness, distress, but darkness comes, of course. Trouble and distress. That's how you'll know you're in the end times, because people will be so troubled. I think the initial, let's say, series of ill events that befall the earth, probably an impactor, the second trumpet, I think is a fairly. I was looking at a video on the effects of different sized impactors, and a couple kilometer rocket hitting into the ocean would be pretty bad, but not earth shattering. But it would be a nice opening salvo into what was about to come. There will be a darkness of the sky and all that, right? But it'll be a third. It has yet to go truly darkness. You see in the vials, it gets to true darkness. His kingdom is filled of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain. If we want to escape these things, again, we got to be right with the Lord. David went into captivity. We're going to go into captivity. We're going to have to face Antichrist. He's not going to be happy. He's not going to let me go. What do you think, he's going to let me go? Oh, Paul, go ahead. Just do as you please. I don't need your need about me. I'll just take these and go. No, he wants every need about him so he can make that claim that he's Christ. He wants everyone to worship him. They're going to wonder after him. They're going to worship him. They're going to worship the dragon because he's the one who gives power to the beast. And the beast, I do agree with those who say that's a political system. And I think the image of the beast is that thing which they intend. You kind of, is it this? I don't know if it is. It's something, but it's something like what they do at the World Economic Forum. I don't know that is it, but that's the sort of thing when they, we're going to make the world. You'll have nothing and you'll be happy, right? We're going to have a great reset. We're going to change everything. We're going to change times and laws. Men will be women. Women will be men. It'll be great. We're just going to, anyone can be anything they want to be. You can be a half animal. You can be a cyborg. You can have, they're going to offer all this sort of, that's what they want to go towards. A world without God where men are as gods, or at least they are, right? They want a lot fewer of us plebs, a lot fewer of us who speak the truth for sure. That's why they try to desensitize us to the death of other Christians, like the Christian Palestinians that are oppressed and by that wicked nation. They are oppressed by them, slaughtered by them. And American Christians just applaud. Oh, go get him. Go get the terrorists. You ignorant people. Swearing comes way too easily off my tongue. I really wanted to get profane there. Man, I just felt it like... Ignorance is such I sympathize with what Jesus said when they said, they say, are we blind also? I like to think of you as blind, but you guys think you see. Think you're going to tell me what's what. So your sin remains. You think you see, okay, we'll judge you that way then. All right? Day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wasteness. I'm just curious what wasteness is there. I'm probably not bringing it up on the screen. Wasteness is show. I think that's similar to Shoah, like the Holocaust. Might be where it comes. It means perhaps a ravage. Apparently this word is not used a ton. It's 12 occurrences. Wasteness. Ezekiel 38, like a storm. Isaiah 47, desolation shall come. Desolation which shall come, Isaiah 10. Wasteness and desolation seem right. Interesting, Psalm 63, my soul to destroy it shall go. Those that seek to destroy my soul. Those to destroy seek my life. Okay, whatever. My soul from the destructions, my darling. Oh, that's Psalm 35. Okay, anyways. Okay, wasteness, destruction. Okay, whatever. Show. And desolation. Let's just say it's a similar word. I want to get through this. Of darkness and gloominess, of day of clouds and thick darkness. And remember, Satan himself, he is called Abaddon, Apollyon, the destroyer. And he will come, but, the way he goes about destroying is first through deception. And that brings about the calamity that comes at the end. When, there's this sort of fake darkness that comes, and he comes in the lull before the real devastation that comes when the sun goes black as sackcloth of hair and the moon goes blood, and it's not just diminished a third from the impact or whatever, from the smoke of the pit or whatever. It's going to, I don't know. I do see this sort of, I've often wondered, this like, when Satan comes in the person of Antichrist, how does he convince people he's God? And I think it's because it is sort of the end of the world scenario first starts unfolding. And people realize that. And then the Antichrist appears, calamity of calamity. And they don't know it. I'll know it. It's going to, in your patience possess your soul. It's going to drive me nuts. It shouldn't. I should just be like, oh, this is what was prophesied. It's like I care too much. That's the problem. I cannot divorce myself from my feelings about it. I'll work on it. But it's like, it's going to drive me up the wall. Everyone's worshiping this guy. It's going to drive me up the wall. I don't need God to talk to me then. I tell you what, I cannot just abide in this silence forever. Not that he's silent. He's already spoken. I mean, the words are all there. I didn't want to have to be like Thomas. I didn't want to have to touch his wounds to believe. The thick darkness is coming, and clouds. I don't know why I even bothered to get the solar panels. I did it because I thought there was this massive rebate I was going to get. But I was deceived. I got 0. Fortunately, they do work. So instead of an electric bill that goes up and down, I just got this, whatever, loan payment plus an electric bill. A small one. I will bring distress upon men, that they shall walk like blind men. Again, I always like to think of people who were blinded who used to see. Because people who are born blind are often quite adept at getting around. I don't like to ride down. I had a debate with a blind guy, and I always try to be mindful of and respectful of people with disabilities. Being deformed myself, but not disabled. Let's say I'm able. I could have been born with 0, and then I wouldn't be much of a man. Well, I guess they could do for you, right? They give you hormones and stuff, right? Anyways, but they shall walk like blind, and they're going to wander around and not know, like they can't see, they don't know what to do. Like imagine just the wander. There's a bird cast out of his nest, so that shall the children of Moab be at the fords of Arnon. They're going to be like a wandering bird, like the way birds seem to wander aimlessly. They don't often do not have an obvious goal. I have birds and I notice this, but because sometimes we get our analogies, bird brain and all that stuff. I will run down the birds a bit. They're a bit bird brained, but the blind, when someone used to see and then they lose their eyes as an adult, it's devastating to lose your sight. And you wander around like, oh, I can't see. And that's what they'll be wandering around like blind men in that sense. Like people who can't suddenly are without the ability to, whether you depended on your eyes. Walk with their hands out, trying to possibly see what's coming ahead, reaching forward to make sure they don't stumble into something or over something. And this blindness surely will overtake them. They will wander like blind men, though they see. Like I said, people will not know what to do. The perplexity, because people are so settled in their ways. Me too. I mean, when the Lord gave me this realization, Paul, it's coming. don't be deceived. Don't think, because it's not just like, even like I said, even though I still have some doubt, is this the end times, or will it be the end times? Will it be the last time? I want to just say it's going to be the last time. I want to say that because it's just what I wouldn't want to go through the disaster we're about to experience without the hope that the Lord will appear. It's like I think that's what's going to make the appearance of Antichrist so effective, because people's hearts are going to be so comforted. It's someone who can come who's strong enough to save us from all this, to establish peace on earth, and to stop all the terrible signs in the heavens and the fearful things, the distress of nation, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and the devil will be cast out. Yeah, he's in the world, but not in the way that he could be. Not without a leash, not without a chain. I mean, metaphorically, I know he's going to be chained in the bottomless pit later. He's in the world in a spiritual sense, but he will come here much more powerfully. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, for he knows he hath but a short time. This is not, people often think, oh, that was back in the time of Jesus. I don't think so. Now is the prince of this world cast out. I just think that, like a lot of things in the Bible, a lot of times the gaps are not acknowledged by God at all. He doesn't acknowledge the gaps. It's like, oh yeah, well, now meaning that's the next thing that happens. Because God's going to go quiet, kind of. We haven't had official prophets. We haven't had official apostles since the apostles. For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they did from the foundation of the earth. Men scoff. Men don't believe. Well, for the sins that they have sinned against the Lord, their blood shall be poured out as dust, and their flesh as dung. Just as common things. Their blood will not be put much value on. That's why I hear that's how that sounds to me. Their flesh as dung. And when, and like dung, the mangled flesh of many dead is an unclean thing. It breeds disease and sickness. The stench of death. And that's why the birds will be sent to devour them, that their corpses not fester and. And we already kind of discussed the silver and the gold. And like I said, invest in gold. I do take some comfort in the fact that in the end, that will not be enough. Gold will not be sufficient. At some point, food is like all your gold, you'll spend all your gold to eat for one day. You know what I mean? Because gold is just metal. And the only reason people sell it is because if they have hope for the future. When people have no hope for the future, as far as the gold will ever be really worth anything because civilization starts to collapse, that trading for gold is not going to be so easy. Because some people are going to say, what is that gold to me if I cannot eat? What if tomorrow no one wants gold? What if tomorrow all they'll take is bullets? What if the day after no one even wants that? Because there's no one left to kill, or there's just so few. It's like, what am I going to do with my bullets? All the beasts of the field are fled. All the people are dead. Not all, of course. I'm going a little bit exaggerating there, but I'm saying like the truly valuable things are, part of the things that's valuable is relationships you form with people around you. So I'm glad I live in a rural area because I don't have so many neighbors to worry about becoming, violent, and perhaps there's a potential for mutual support and defense and trading with people who are, I try to produce things here that are edible, maybe things that the others may not. Perhaps those can be traded, for things if necessary, or the Lord will provide. That's why I want to ultimately count on the idea that, hey, what are the 2 loaves and a few fishes among 5 loaves and 2 fishes among so many? Well, it can be everything. The Lord can do wonders, has done wonders. You believe he rose Jesus from the dead? Well, believe then that he can feed you in the wilderness, just like he fed the children of Israel in the wilderness. That doesn't mean, my conundrum is in the fact that I see it coming. So shouldn't I prepare? Isn't that I don't want to throw myself into danger foolishly. It's just like, it's not wrong to plan for your retirement. It's not, but then again, I think about that, not so that you can just fold your hands and say, "Oh, I've got everything set." No, I want to retire from work so I can serve the Lord constantly. Well, that's a good reason to serve, to set aside for your retirement. Yeah. No, I just want to retire in luxury so I can go on more cruises and I can go and see all kinds of cool places. I'd like to see those cool places too, but I want to travel to other planets, and I'm not getting there in this flesh body. There's just no way. So, if the Lord will, perhaps we can go. Perhaps things on Earth will be so, that you won't. I don't know. Why would He create such a wide universe if it wasn't part of His plan that we would explore it somewhat, build houses in other places, or build up other places, or whatever? I don't know. It sounds exciting to me. But if we don't learn to live right, we won't be there. We won't be part of that kingdom. He's going to look at us and say, I don't know you. You say you believe in me? I don't think so. I don't think so. Not me. You believed in some story about me, or you said you did, but you didn't act like it. Anyways, let's see. The whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy, for he shall make even speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. Again, Zephaniah is mindful of his times, but that doesn't mean, like I said, the prophets echo, and they are shadows of what is to come. The events were shadows of what were to come. The laws were shadows of Christ. He will make speedy riddance. And it says, and the end thereof shall be with a flood. Very rapid way to get rid of people. Though it promised that there would. I'm a little that the flood of waters no more return to cover the land. That's only said once in Genesis, but it is said that it would be fire this time. Men will be scorched with great heat. All right, so speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land, etc. Well, and ultimately that is God's judgment. There will be wrath poured out. And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceedeth out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. Certainly locally at Jerusalem, there will not be many left alive. Because, for one, all of his people that would be locally in Jerusalem and killed and lay in the street of that great city, which is called spiritually Sodom and Egypt. So I was saying, understand, right now, Jerusalem is spiritually Sodom and Egypt. It ain't no holy city. You can look up, there's all kinds of informative news programs about what a harbor of pedophiles that country has become, because they have no extradition treaties with anyone. If you are one of them and you commit pedophilic crimes in another country, you can just run there and live as you please, and no one's going to arrest you. No one's nothing, because they think God is. There's nothing. I don't know what it is they think as far as God, because I question the faith of those who would be so callous and so foolish to take into their midst such perversion. But it is an extremely rapey country, also, especially raping of the women who are not, of them, because there's sort of open season on those people because they're treated like subhumans, and in their education system, you can talk about the way they're educated to be racist. And I don't. So I understand racism to a degree. Like I said, I understand the instinct to be my family and my people and all that, right? But in Christ, he's made something new. I was cast out of the family of God. I wasn't part of God's family. I'm a Gentile. But then people like Cornelius demonstrated that God is no respecter of persons. The people who fear him and love and do righteousness, that's acceptable to God. And like I said, I think that means that, as Peter, in the case of Peter, he revealed Christ to him. Because our good works aren't enough to save us. We need a sacrifice. We need something to pay. It can be us. That's good. Hey, you do right, that's good. You're going to live a long life before you die and pay for your sins. Because the soul that sins, it shall die. We all die. We still do that. But we don't have to die forever. We can be raised from the dead through our faith in Jesus Christ. And that's, and because again, a righteous man dying, righteous man, quote unquote, there's nothing wrong. From God's perspective, that's as it should be. He paid for his sins. He paid the penalty. If we don't want to pay that penalty, though, we need to come to Jesus. Or truly have him come to us. And that's ultimately the way it works. He comes to us. All right, thanks for joining me. We'll be back again to study tomorrow. Sorry we missed yesterday. Things came up. We'll continue in Zephaniah 2 tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get through a bit of that. Anyways, until then, remember the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy and the fulfillment of the law. Music.
Therefore my people are gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Therefore hell hath enlarged herself, and opened her mouth without measure. And their glory, and their multitude, and their pomp, and he that rejoiceth shall descend.